Patterson. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Mr White, you'll remember last round of estimates we had a bit of discussion about spending and tallying up the effects of spending decisions over time, which you were helpful with. Thank you. So I want to return to some of that and examine some related issues. I'm going to put some propositions to you. If you think they're unreasonable or unfair, please tell me. But I understand that over the last 3 years, government spending has grown on average roughly twice as fast as the economy.
Good question, Senator. Can I just confirm one other thing before I do these questions?
Of course you can.
Cannot retrospectively fix the problem.
Okay, good to know. All right.
So your question is about payments growth over the last several years. Was that what you were?
Yeah, let's say last 3 years.
What sort of payments growth were you talking about, Senator, specifically?
Government spending total.
In nominal terms or in real growth terms?
What do you think would be most reasonable to measure how fast government spending has been growing compared to the economy?
So I do not have nominal terms with me, Senator. I only have the real growth terms in the budget.
Go with that.
I think budget paper 1 in statement 10, table 10.1 rather, has real payments growth over the last several years. It was negative for 2021 and 2021-22 and 22-23 after we came out of COVID. Since then it's grown by 2.96 and it's expected to be 3 in the current year, Senator.
Yep. And the economy's been growing somewhat less than that over that period of time. I think the most recent figures showed 2.1%, but it was about 1.5% before that, roughly.
I don't have the economic growth rates with me, Senator, but I could take your word for it.
Is there a question or?
Yeah, I think Mr White was getting to the numbers.
I do not have the growth rates,
well, let's just
economic growth rates with me, Senator.
Let's just take that as at read. If anyone violently disagrees with me, they're entitled to. As I discussed with the RBA Governor this morning, in that period, the economy has grown by about $300 billion and government spending has grown by about $150 billion. So government spending has been about half the rate of growth in the economy. Is that a fair observation in your view?
Well, again, I'm not sure this is Fiscal Group's area to compare and contrast in exercises
I can't ask Fiscal Group about the growth in government spending as a proportion of the economy.
Well, then you're asking them other questions that around spending across the economy, which I don't think
hang on.
Really.
Like, if Fiscal Group can't help me with the growth in government spending as a proportion of the economy, I'm not sure who can.
You've got a few pre-worked exercises there where you're asking things that you've set up. They are here to help.
You're too cynical,
Senator,
Minister.
Patterson, but
I'm just
not
trying
to engage in what you're,
I'm just trying to establish a shared set of facts, right? Because often these conversations end up being a dispute about, oh, no, I'm not sure about those facts. So if we can establish that up front, then the conversation is easier. We can have disagreements about policy, but once we have a shared set of facts, it's easier.
Table 10.1, Senator, has payments as a proportion of GDP.
Yep.
Over the last few years, Senator, that has increased to the current year and it's projected to decline slightly over the next few years.
Indeed, yes, we might come to that. Thank you. And I think it was last time in this setting that we discussed that the last financial year, government spending grew by about 4 times faster than the economy. From memory, it was about 5.5% for government spending growth and about 1.5%, give or take, for economic growth. That's right, isn't it?
Are you talking about the 24-5 year, Senator?
Yes.
So we have in 24-5 that there was 6% real growth in spending, and I recollect something of the other numbers that you mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. So I think all of those statistics, point to the fact that government spending in recent years has been growing reasonably strongly.
Government spending has been growing, yes, as we've outlined in the budget papers.
Yeah. Okay, so do you have your final budget outcome with you for
I do, hang on.
24-25?
Yes, I do.
Okay, so directing you to pages 97 and 98, it's table B.1. It is...
Oh, yep.
You got it?
Yes, Senator.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
But now, at the end of that table, it shows the deterioration of the underlying cash balance from
Yes.
positive 16 billion, roughly, to negative 10 billion. As a percentage of GDP, that's about a 1% deterioration, isn't it?
Well, in both of those instances, there was improvements in the forecast UCB, both in the year that you talk about, I think from memory, where we had a deficit. The first year of the deficit was maybe a third of what we inherited.
Yeah, you mean the 2022 forecast.
There had been an improvement in what had been forecast, yes, from 2022.
The pessimistic COVID era forecast of which you base a lot of your claims about better management.
They're the set of numbers we inherited, and we've been working since then to get the budget in better shape.
We know. So I'm just actually interested in the real numbers, not just the imagined alternative.
Well, it's not imagined numbers.
Well, there they are, because they were never actually realised. They're just forecasts, and we're now getting quite far out, so not very reliable ones. But we've gone from, am I right, a $16 billion surplus to a $10 billion deficit between those two financial years, and that is it's a deterioration of about 1% as a share of the economy.
As you point out in that table, Senator, we went from a surplus of 15.8 billion, which is 0.6% of GDP, to a deficit of, it rounds to 10 billion, negative 0.4% of GDP, Senator.
Great, okay. And revenue that financial year, I think that's in the table as well. I'm just trying to... Yep.
In table B1,
receipts.
Senator, receipts.
Yep, so it's gone up by 0.1%, is that right?
Yep, from 25.8 to 25.9, Senator, if that's what you're reading.
Yep, and you have to go back to 2001 to find revenue as a proportional economy that high again, don't you?
I think that's right, Senator, at a quick look.
Thank you, and then prior to that, I think it's 86, 87.
That looks to be right, Senator, yes.
Yep. Now, spending as a proportion of the economy rather than raw terms, to compare apples to apples, that goes up by 1% of GDP between 23-24 and 24-25, doesn't it?
That's what the table says, Senator, yes.
Yep. So we can summarise those facts and say that the cause of the budget going into deficit between those two financial years is that spending increased by about 1% of GDP, but revenue increased by only 0.1% of GDP.
That's what the table shows, Senator, yes.
What were the drivers of that increase in spending primarily?
Do we have any clue, Luke, or are we going to take it on notice?
We can probably take it on notice, I think.
I think I don't think we have the drivers of spending between those 2 years with us, Senator. We'll have to take it on notice.
Okay, but you probably do remember last estimates we did discuss the net impact of decisions taken.
Yes, Senator.
And just to summarise that, again, please argue with me if you think I'm not summarising it fairly or accurately. It was net decisions taken of about $22 billion. That is spending not offset in the 24-25 financial year.
I can tell you the biggest programs that, with the biggest nominal growth rates between those 2 years, if you're of interest. It's veterans payments, natural disaster, which is growing at 31%, natural disaster relief growing at 21%, hospital funding 12%, childcare 14%, aged care 11%, Medicare 8%, and aged pensions 5%.
Do you have the raw dollar terms there, Minister?
Well, they're all pretty big programs. Like in the veterans payments, it's in the billions.
You can provide it on notice if you like.
But I'm just giving you, as you criticise spending, I'm explaining what those big areas of pressure are.
Well, Minister, actually, I want to be generous to you. I want to be generous to you. I don't hold you responsible for automatically indexing programs like the pension. That's set in legislation. That's not a decision. I'm actually interested in things you do have direct control over, like the decisions that you take and not take. That's why I'm
like investments in Medicare, for example. Investments in Medicare would form one of the ones you do have a problem with.
No, I'm not saying I have a problem with it. I'm just trying to understand what the cumulative effect of your decisions were. And as I remember from last...
Yeah.
Sorry, Senator O'Neill, it's not really in order to interject like that.
Well, stop verballing people.
I'm not verballing anybody.
Well, I'm just explaining, as you're criticising the spending that's growing, you know, I'm outlining some of those big areas of pressure. I would add defence.
I haven't uttered a single word of criticism. I have not made...
I would add defence in there.
...any normative or values-based judgments at all. I'm actually just trying to confirm factual information. So is it true, Mr White, that the net effect of decisions taken in the 24-25 year is $22 billion?
So I do not have that number with me, Senator. You mean over time since it was first in the forward estimates? That's what I recollect our discussion was about, wasn't it, last time?
Yes, correct. Accumulated decisions over time in that had an effect in that financial year.
Do you have that?
Senator, Luke Spear, Assistant Secretary, Budget Policy Division. I think this is covered in a quon.
Yeah, I think you might be right.
And we gave you a table, I think SBA 102.
Yep.
And we gave you a table of policy decisions that impacted 24-25 over... Do you have that, Damien?
Yeah, you did. You went back a bit further than I asked you to, but that's always good to have more information rather than less information. But I don't want to hold this government responsible for decisions that a previous government made. So if we go from 22 PFO onwards, is it $22 billion?
I haven't done the calc here, but I'll trust your maths.
Thereabouts, okay. So it's right to say then that the deficit of $10 billion last financial year was caused by decisions taken that otherwise, had those decisions been offset, for example, the surplus would have been about $12 billion.
Well, I mean, budgets are a whole range of decisions, hundreds of decisions really that interact with each other. But we're not going to apologise for investing in programs.
No apologies required, Minister.
Well,
I'm not asking for apologies.
No, but it's implicit
not at all.
the point you're trying to make here. Yes, it is.
Oh.
I mean, you can sit here and pretend it's not, Senator Patterson, but you and I have been, even though you're a very young, wise man, we all know what the point you're trying to make, and I've got plenty of your quotes sitting here, you know, criticising government spending since you took the portfolio responsibility. So I understand the point you're trying to make. But
Minister, we may well get to that, but actually I'm not
but
trying
we don't apologise for investments in Medicare, investments in urgent care
I'm not
clinics
asking
and,
to,
and
so
the
good
like
news,
like
you don't
that.
need
They
to.
are good, sensible investments that are needed to ensure that we're helping people with the pressures that they're under, and in that instance build a health system that we need, and the same in areas like cheaper childcare. You know,
Minister, we can have a political debate. Very happy to have that another time, another place. But
I mean, it's a missing part of your criticism. Is that you're very
there's been not a word of criticism here.
You only read a few of your own transcripts, Senator Patterson. I read them all.
I'm glad.
And they are full of criticisms.
Oh, well.
They are full of criticism. And so I just say it's the missing bit of your argument is that whilst you're criticising, you're absolutely going nowhere near what you would indicate to be spending that you don't support.
I'll note that none of the factual propositions I've been put forward have been contested. If you subsequently,
I haven't got all. I'm not signing up to. I'm not signing up to all of the things
Minister,
that you're running through.
I'm just about to give you a nice off ramp here, which is to say, if you
I don't
disagree,
need an off-ramp.
If you disagree, please come back on notice. Tell me where I'm wrong. I'd be very happy to be corrected. If I'm wrong, I want to be accurate.
No, I've got a lot of things on, so
like
all
reading
I'm
my
saying,
transcripts, apparently.
Well, I do read your transcripts. It's part of my job. Like, I see it as an important part of
What
my
about
job.
the YouTube channel? You subscribe to that? It goes off.
Hey, I have seen a couple of your videos actually. I don't subscribe to. I don't have a subscription to YouTube, but I have seen a couple. Good. Starring James Patterson. But yeah, it's an important part of my job.
Okay,
I don't know why people would find that funny.
No, why indeed? All right, let's go to budget papers now. 25-26 budget, page 335, table 10.
1, Senator.
Pardon?
Budget paper 1.
Yes, correct. Table 10.1, the Australian Government General Sector Receipts and Payments. So the budget estimates that payments will decline by 0.6% of GDP between now and 28-29. Is that right?
So with the caveat, the only caveat I'll put on that, Senator, that's what the table shows, but we have had the final budget outcome in the middle, as you just pointed out to us, which has a different number for 24-5, and our estimates are about to be updated for MyEFO, so there's a bit of apples and oranges with an outcome that we haven't quite got in the rest of the numbers, but with that caveat, yes.
Well, let's stick with the 25-26 budget numbers because they're at least consistent with each other rather than crisscrossing. So at least in the 25-26 budget, it shows that payments will decline as a percentage of GDP by 0.6% over the forwards, which in dollar terms is about $20 billion of reduction in spending. Is that right?
You're saying that 0.6% of GDP is about equivalent to $20 billion?
Yeah.
It's probably in the ballpark, I would think, Senator.
Okay.
I don't quite know what GDP is out there, but it's going to be something like that.
Okay. How is government going to achieve those savings?
So the numbers out through the forward estimates here are the combination of all of the numbers that agencies put into finance's system and get added up for all the programs that are going forward. Mostly programs grow, some shrink. It is the combination of those thousands, probably maybe even more than thousands of programs that are in the system at the moment.
Yes. So it's things like terminating measures.
There are some terminating measures in the numbers, yes.
Can be time-limited programs.
Yep.
It can also just be programs that are continuing to grow slower than the economy, Senator, as well.
Yeah, well, I'd like to see a bit of that. There hasn't been so much of that lately.
Me too.
Pardon me?
Me too.
Yeah. And it also includes a reduction in ASL, doesn't it?
Well, the ASL tables are published in BP4, I think. So they would give you the numbers that align with that. Yep,
and the PBO has calculated what that reduction in ASL would need to be in order to meet the projections of the budget, and they say there would need to be a reduction in the public service of 22,500. That's right, isn't it?
Well, I haven't seen the PBO's
really?
numbers on that.
Haven't read the election costing report?
No.
Read my transcripts, but not the ECR?
Not in detail, no. I am aware of the report.
I think there's probably more value in that than my transcripts, to be really honest. Since
the
they
rest of things?
Report on your election commitments, and they say...
I saw that when it came out.
Okay.
But I don't have it in front of me.
Okay, so, but Mr White, is that right?
I'm vaguely aware of the PBO report, but
we're not here to verify PBO's work.
No, you're here to tell me how you're going to achieve these savings in the budget, and the PBO is one view, and they've said it require a 22,500 reduction in ASL. If that's not right, well, how does the government plan to achieve that reduction in spending?
Those numbers reflect decisions taken by the government at the point of the budget. I would tell you that we've found $100 billion in savings and reprioritisations across government since coming to government without cutting essential services and rebuilding the public services we've needed to. And we'll continue to make decisions like that. I mean, we've been spending a lot of time talking about the 5% issue this week.
Yeah, we could get to that too if we have time.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, you can't criticise spending and then criticise an exercise in fiscal discipline.
No, I just want to understand your own government's policies, Minister. So if not a reduction in ASL of 22,500, how will the government achieve the reduction in the budget?
Well, you'll see decisions the government makes reflected in the next update and in the budget.
But you've ruled out...
That's at the point where you will see those.
But I'm right in understanding you've ruled out those 22,500 reduction
Well,
in
I've said
ASL.
the public service, what I've said is, in my view, and it will move up and down around a bit, that it is around the right size now. I think we're resourcing it at about the right levels. Obviously, that's under continuous review. If you ask any agency, I think they would come running towards you saying they need more ASL.
I don't doubt
but
that.
I think roughly the big increases that we've provided have rebuilt capability and have the public service at roughly the right size.
Sure, but if you're going to keep the public service at the current size and still achieve these savings, then you're going to have to find cuts elsewhere, aren't you?
Well, decisions the government takes will be updated in my EFO and through the budget process. We've found, and it's been reflected in the budget, $100 billion worth of savings and reprioritisations since we've come to government. And so that's the approach the Treasurer and I have brought to every update. And I would remind you, there was nothing in your last budget, in probably the last few budgets, of any savings or any reprioritisation. Ever
sure
since
right,
we came to government, the last budget there was zero, absolutely nothing. And every budget since an update, we have found savings and we've made investments where we have prioritised those.
Well, there was no net savings in your last budget.
And we will continue
anyway.
to do so.
So I also just want to ask, just finally then, Minister, are you actually going to allow all those terminating measures to expire? I mean, they include often, from my previous experience in my previous portfolio, things like cybersecurity funding, border protection funding. I mean, are you seriously going to allow those to expire?
So we're doing a lot of work in that regard. Where, there are, as you say, there are hundreds of terminating measures each, and it seems that each budget you deal with more as they come into the terminating frame. So they've often 3-year or 4-year programs that kind of suddenly end, and so we've been trying to triage those and deal with those. Like the legal one was a big one, almost $4 billion for community legal centres that just had a zero ongoing expenditure. So as we have been trying to deal with those and move them where we can, if they are ongoing programs, shift them into ongoing funding. But there are some terminating programs that should terminate and will terminate. But it's been a big part of my job in the last 12 months is to be trying to work through the hundreds of terminating programs, many of them in big departments like the Department of Health, which historically have had those arrangements in place. But we'll have to continue it. It won't all be solved in the next budget because it's a process, but we're going through it now.
Okay. I think I'm out of time. Thank you, Chair.